Hello, welcome everyone. This is the Kubernetes AI Conformance community meeting. Um, please follow the CNCF Code of Conduct and treat each other with respect. And if I paste the link to the Google Doc in the chat, feel free to add your name to the attendees list. Okay, let's go through the agenda. We have a few updates. The first one is the transition from working group to a SIG-Arch sub-project. I believe that's in progress. And Janet, you just made an announcement in the mailing list, right?
Yes. So you can take a look at the email. It's sent to the both SIG architecture and the working group mailing list. So basically, we're transitioning as we discussed earlier. We're going to rename the repo, but the meeting and the Slack channel stays. The mailing list will be added to SIG Arch. So there's not much on actual change except for the governments. So basically, this means that this work will continue and be permanent and under SIG architecture instead of a temporary effort.
Yeah, so we may still need to recreate the calendar invite, right? And then maybe invite everybody from SIG-Arch instead.
Yeah, I think the details we need to work it out.
Okay.
Basically, the time should be the same.
Yeah. So basically nothing changes, but this is gonna be a long-term sub-project for us and a long-term forum for us to continue iterating on the program. Thank you, Janet. Any questions? Okay. And the second one is the annual report. I believe we just merged a draft, but because of automation, like it just got merged as soon as one of us put a approval there. But we can still iterate on it. If anyone has anything to add or feedback, feel free to let us know. Janet, anything or Rita, like anything you guys want to highlight here?
Yeah, basically, we documented the achievements in 2025 for the requirements we defined, the launch of the program, and the ongoing the process for how we define a requirement. And then there's also um, and so the question two is about where we need help with. So we will need help on the automated test implementation, which is the next topic on the agenda.
Hmm. Yeah. I saw like one comment on the PR, like we should probably mention like the transition to a sub-project in the report, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, Test framework. Oops, did I just unlink it? Okay. Did you share this with the mailing list?
Yeah, I shared that with both the working group and the SIG architecture mailing list. I
Okay.
think everyone should have common access, so you can make suggestions or edits, comment if you like. And the gist of the doc is that we are thinking that we are not going to rely on the legacy Kubernetes end-to-end test framework because there's a lot of tech debt there after we consult SIG testing folks. And then Patrick recommends a, a library that we could potentially use. It's called K testing. So maybe we can give that a try, but then it doesn't have everything there yet. So I think that could be used for handling logging and context.
Mhm. Oops.
And
Yeah.
then again, we need volunteers to help with this. So if you're interested in contributing in this area, please let me know. Or and it doesn't need to be you own everything. You can just own a small piece you feel if you feel more comfortable that way.
Mhm. Yeah. Someone Yashasvi
Yeah, yeah.
showed interest in the chat. Um.
Yeah, so I would be interested in volunteering in this area.
Yeah. So feel free to take a look at the proposal and reach out to Janet if you're interested in helping.
Yeah, sure.
And Janet, is there anything else we should discuss on this proposal? Any other major comments besides this one here?
So our goal for 136 is that we need at least the framework set up in at least one automated test so that to get us ready for the goal of in 137, every month requirement will have a test. So we plan to start with one of the requirement which is the secure accelerator access because most of the self certification has a document that lay out how they run the test of that. So that seems like a good starting point. And
Go ahead, Rita.
Yeah, there was a comment about, I think, given that some of these tests may be specific to certain hardware or solutions, so we need to make sure that each test has a way to opt out. And I guess like this is why I'm raising this to this audience is to get feedback on, if we allow each test to be opt out and the way to get conformance would be providing some uh, way to be conforming. Is that whether that's the current process, which is linked to a document or um, some script that you've ran to show that you're conforming to this requirement. Well, what do you guys feel like is the right sort of meet halfway when your platform doesn't support that hardware, for example? So let's take the secure accelerator access as an example, right? Say if, like, as an example, a test here would maybe use the NVIDIA SMI client tool, right? So if you're not using the NVIDIA accelerator and using something else, it would make sense for you maybe to opt out. But then how do you demonstrate that your platform supports meets this requirement?
Mhm.
yeah, I think for that, and I support the idea of opting out, and then the platform they will fall back to the original self-certification questionnaire until the automated tests support their specific either hardware or specific solution they choose.
I mean, I uh, uh, I guess like these are all the prerequisites, right? Like, so the tests even before they start, they should automatically know where they are. So there should be a way for the test to find out what kind of a hardware is they're going to be executing on. Like, does that?
I believe what we've said in the past is you do not have to use the automated tests to be conformant. You can always do it by hand. But we want to encourage people to use the automated test by making it like the path of least resistance. And so if you use the automated tests and you pass, hey, like being like filling out that conformance thing just got a whole lot easier. And by the way, if you're on AMD and you write an automated test for AMD, you're gonna you're going to have an easier time going forward. So why don't you contribute to the automated tests, right? We set up the system. We encourage people to use it, but they don't have to. They will just it is a feature that they will have an easier time if they are able to use the automated tests.
Yeah, I think that's the North Star. Absolutely. I think the concern here is if a vendor provides their own way to demonstrate that they meet the requirement, who are the people who's actually going to go check the work?
I think that would be the PR review when the
CNCF.
test is added. Yeah.
Right. And I think that's the thing, right? Is like the automated test is, yes, it's easier for the vendor to run, but also is easier for the reviewer to trust the results, I guess. It's another way. Yeah. So in the event the automated test does not, help with their testing, how do we ensure whatever they provided is actually meeting the requirement?
But that is the
So
start
are
of
you
it today.
saying,
Oh, sorry, Johnny.
so maybe instead of a doc that just talk about features, you are thinking about they need to provide a script?
Ampu, go ahead.
Yeah. So I mean, like, because my thought on that was like we have a general like set of tests, and the test should basically know what hardware they're executed on, and you know, like basically like the test should be like intelligent enough to know that, and it should be able to certify a particular environment. Wouldn't that be easier for everybody?
Yeah, I think that we did, yeah, 100% that's how the automated test suite should be set up. Like, for example, in this case, right, the device class would be in like the NVIDIA DRA driver,
Yeah.
right? And
Mhm.
then we should make that maybe like parameterable, or sorry, that's not a word. We should parameterize that so that it's, you can easily replace it with like another DRA driver, right? Like 100%. I think the question is more who is going to do that work to ensure all the future hardware or solutions are already part of the automated test suite, such that when the platform needs to use it to prove that they meet the requirement, it's actually there.
Uh, I it might be a dumb question, like, but is it possible for us to add those hardwares to our GitHub runners and have our actions just execute them on them? Or would it be like an overkill? Like, right, like dynamically add hardware to the GitHub runners
I
and
think
have our
there's
GitHub
two
action.
aspects, right? One is our infra would need to run these AI conformance tests, right? So that bit is our hardware, our to our test infra to make sure those hardware are there to test the requirements, right? The other bit is how do we support the net new stuff that may never be tested as part of our,
Oh,
right? So it's a bit different.
I get your point. Okay, okay,
Yeah.
got it, got it. Okay.
I don't know who raised, is it Kevin?
Yeah, so in terms of entry testing for hardware, I know DIMS was trying to open up a pull request to add GPU testing of the NVIDIA DRA driver. We kind of, due to the fact that Upstream has a mock DRA driver, or I guess we were thinking there's really no point in actually having GPU testing in Tree right now. So I know I see this comment about GPU quota, partly because what we don't really want is to be verifying device vendors code in upstream. So I don't know, like, I think for the conformance tests, what I think we need to understand is that at least I don't think we're going to be running these in tree in our CI. I think they're more the responsibility of a vendor to provide the hardware and run the tests. And in terms of development, I guess we do need people to have access to it to verify that these tests work. But I don't think we want the Kubernetes community to be paying for these GPU devices for testing right now, especially with the fact that we can mock out the device vendors' work, which I know does seem weird because I would prefer we had testing of the actual GPUs, but I think we open ourselves up to a, a huge maintenance problem if we start opening up that door. Please go ahead. I think, Justin, you were next.
Yeah, if you want to jump in, Rita, that's fine. I do want to draw a distinction between E2E tests and conformance. I think we should just treat E2E separately. And I think for conformance, the status quo, what we have today is that the conformance reports, I guess, are manually verified. And I think we can continue with that as the baseline. And then if we're able to automate the execution of the tests and streamline the evaluation of those results for some subset of cases, that's a win. I don't think we have to cover everything because we have that baseline. And I think if we set it up so that someone that uses AMD is heavily incentivized to get an automated test for AMD in there, I think that will sort of take care of itself. Like, I don't think we should block automating a conformance test for the case of NVIDIA on the fact that it doesn't, there's no support for AMD in that automated conformance test, right? It's still a win for everyone if we have a subset of things automated and we can grow that subset over time.
Just a quick response to Kevin's point about testing. I think for at least the test suite that we're creating, right, for AI conformance, that's probably like a new repo. At least for that bit, I think we do need some GPU hardware in order to test the requirements, right? I think that's a bare minimum. But whether or not that needs to run on every single Kubernetes release, that's TBD, I think, right? Does that make sense? Yeah.
I mean, it does. Yeah, I mean, I guess.
Like, we need some way to test these requirements or the automated tests for these requirements.
Yeah, I mean, you're saying we need some development for these tests, which does make sense. Yeah, it's getting hardware is always hard.
Yeah, I think what you're highlighting though is unlike the Kubernetes conformance test, right, which runs on every, it's release blocking and fully tested. I don't know if AI conformance test it needs to do that.
No, I mean, it doesn't, but I guess my concern is we're getting to, like, for example, static MIG. You can't really get away with requesting a small GPU for that. You need an A100 or an H100 or Blackwell, which is expensive. And like right now, like we're getting away with this by provisioning the cheapest GPU we can possibly get for testing the device plugin. And all we're doing there is verifying whether or not you can do a vector add. And that's it. So I'm just like, if we start thinking about hardware, it's something I guess we do need to, like, I guess I'm more going off the question from Arnaud about infrastructure flakiness. And I think like one thing we're not, like these tests will not be blocking a Kubernetes release. They're more for development. And I guess it is kind of a challenge that I'm not exactly sure how to solve right now because we don't have a great hardware story in the Kubernetes CI really. Anyway, that's all I have.
So I think we are going to discover more or figure out more details as we implement the test. So why don't we just start with implementing the first test and start with just GPU and then see how we expand from there. I think we can move on to the next topic.
Okay, next one. Okay. Yeah, we're heading into the open topics then. We have 3 requirements that we'd like to discuss. We're considering adding these to as new shoots on 136. So let's go through them, I guess.
Yeah. So these 3 are all related to inferencing on Kubernetes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let me
So maybe
open
we
up.
can look at them all together.
Right. The first one is the networking one. Oh, actually, this.
I will say the first one is not just for inference, but that it's also for training.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Basically, any workloads that needs high performance communication. Let's see some comments here from Kevin and Anthony. Do you guys want to discuss this one?
It's a long time ago. I did have a discussion with Antonio about this one. He actually answered my question probably in this one, but now I fully get it. I guess I'll just be honest, I don't know how prevalent DRA net is across the ecosystem right now and what other options there are.
So let me ask, if you are going to do a program of conformance, you cannot do the test based on the implementation, right? So it's like we do in conformance. The functionality is you need to be able to move a NIC into a pod, right? Because it's how the nickel or this library is consumed. The thing. You have a Melanode, you have an Intel, or you have whatever. So the test should, for example, do that, right? Create some 2 or 3 VMs and use nickel and use the high speed or whatever thing and run to that. And I'm trying to say is with the previous conversation, I think that you're focusing too much into the hardware details, and that means that you are going to deadlock in a few months after coping with the new hardware and new features. I think that what we do in conformance in Kubernetes is that just what's the functionality expected. Is you deploy something and a workload, and the workload need to consume this, and people can use the internet, can use Multus, can use whatever they want. But the goal is to prove that you can run a workload that is able to use high-speed interfaces in a cluster of Kubernetes. I think that's what we want, right? And we shouldn't care about how you implement that. I think that this was like 6 months ago, but I don't remember. But I imagine that they replied on.
Andreas,
My point is, there
Andrew,
are
I see you
two.
raise your hand. Are you responding to Antonio, or do you have other comments?
Yeah, I want to just quickly ask and maybe suggest for all those topics around the array. I'm kind of like curious whether, like it's just a proposal, whether we want to kind of postpone those requirements due to workload hour scheduling work streams. Because I feel like once we have VAS in GA and in beta, there will be more adoption of the array across ecosystem. Because I guess eventually the goal is to all of the workloads, especially ML and AI workloads, to adopt this workload hour scheduling, and resource claims will be part of this pod group assignment and scheduling. So I guess we can maybe rethink some of those requirements based on these work streams going on. Because
this is a
yeah, go Jen.
this is a shared requirement, so we should be able to add it before it's fully mature, because the should requirement is there for signaling the direction we're going, which might change in the future. That's fine before it becomes a must. And before it becomes a must, we want to have higher standard for what requirements can be a must. Yuja?
Just on that, because I do remember some discussions last year about that. Do we have any schedule for moving to must, or can we, as Janet here just mentioned, delay a move from should to must because of, let's say market developments or waiting for features, as Andre mentioned? Because there was some discussions of we have to move from should to must in one or two versions, and that would not be great, right?
We also said that the must, the requirements for must is also seeing that there's at least two vendors supporting it, right? Similar to KEPS, right? So I don't think it's just one or two releases.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Now I remember. Yes. Thanks.
There also needs to be a way to test it if we want to move to a must.
Yeah, it needs to be automated, tested.
Yeah, I think on this topic around the array, why I think is important, because I think we did have a lot of conversation around how to adopt the array, right? Where it's in job set, in job, in train job, wherever CRD we have in the ecosystem. I feel because resource claims, they're essential part of pod group API, and they will be there. And this is how actually, I guess this is how kubescheduler will make a decision to assign claims to the pod groups. And I feel because our goal right now is to, in 1.36, enable workload API in a job API, but in 1.37, we're planning to, add this to the job set, to train job, to, expand the support. And I feel like the D-Array adoption might be larger once we have these integrations. That's why I suggest, we kind of postpone it.
I don't really think that WAS is related to this, though, because the reality, what this is saying that you should use DRA to request a network resource, and you could do that without WAS by just saying multiple pods can reference the same resource claim. I don't think any issue with that. And then I don't actually think WAS is needed here at all. To me, the bigger challenge is I don't even know where to begin for testing this without a specific implementation.
I think for testing, it will be similar to what we discussed before. We start with the one, it could be a list of implementation that we test, we start with the one that's most adopted, and then if that's not available on the platform, or we allow the vendors to specify using a flag for which solution they're using, then we use that one for test. And because we control who runs the test, it's not on any random users, it's the major platform who are conformant. So basically we have a limited set of solutions that we will need to test. So it's not going to be too wild card. And I also think that the argument about DRA is going to be more well adopted after the workload API. I think that means that it's the right decision to add this should requirement now, because we believe that DRA is going to be more adopted more.
But yeah, I guess, I mean, I'm fine if we're saying this is forward thinking. I guess I just don't, like, if I'm an end user, or sorry, like platform provider, what exactly are we recommending here, even for a should? What's the well trodden path?
I think similar to other shows that we've added in the past, right? I think there's sort of a theme around the vendors need to support DRA. Like, so say the accelerators, right? And in this case, the RDMA, like, I don't know, like the hardware vendors, right? Like they can't just kind of continue to do what they used to do with the device plugins. They need to start looking at DRA as another way to express the resources. I think that is one thing that comes out of all this, right? And then once we kind of have those things move into that direction, then as an app developer, right, or Kubernetes operator, I just need to speak DRA, right? Otherwise, like today, I'm always having to think about, okay, is this clustered device plugin cluster or is it a DRA cluster? You know, and it's not something, it doesn't give me the portability that I think, you know, that I could have. But in order to get there, all these hardware vendors need to provide the support and migrate, right?
So let me propose that we continue the discussion in the proposal, because it seems that everyone has something they want to say, and maybe some people need some time to think about it.
Yeah,
Does that sound good?
Yeah, let's take some time to discuss on the issue. Like if you have any comments, please leave your feedback there. Maybe we can go to the next one. Okay, this one is about advanced ingress for inference, specifically like supporting an implementation of Gateway API inference extension that provides these capabilities.
Yeah, this is trying to talk about the characteristics of how people support ingress for inference.
Yeah, so basically the platform needs to provide an integration, right, or allows gateway API inference extension to help with advanced routing decisions and scheduling. You have a
Yeah,
comment?
I'm not sure if you're like the phrasing might be a bit like the inference extensions never host models, right? If you combine them with something like, I don't know, VLLM or a model hosting framework, then they would route the requests there, right? So they would basically just send signals. They're not, I mean, they do serve LLMs, but they don't host the model themselves, right? So I'm not sure if that could be misunderstood. I think I know what we mean by that, but I'm not sure if it's right to mention that the inference extension should host a model.
Yeah, we can adjust the text there to
Mhm.
clarify.
Or do we mean that like the inference extension should be routing to models that are hosted inside of Kubernetes, like instead of routing to models that are hosted outside?
Yeah, I think I think that's
Because
why
they
I
can
meant.
do both, right? Or
Or is this more about ensuring whatever model serving framework you're using, it supports gateway API inference extension?
okay, so it's the other way
Right.
around,
Yeah,
basically.
right. This is similar to like the DRA story too, right? Is in order for users to say, hey, I can just use this API for all the model routing. In order to say that, all the frameworks need to implement it.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. If you could
Yeah.
make that maybe more clear in the phrasing, that would be, I think.
So I feel like a lot of these like we're starting with the user, right? Saying, hey,
Yeah, right.
this is the common interface I'm to use. Right? Yeah.
Is it just me or
Yeah, I
No,
think
Yeah, I
Rita
can't
is
hear
breaking up.
Rita.
she's rapping? Rita, we can't follow what you're saying.
Am I breaking up?
Yeah, I think it's better now. Can you say it again?
Where did you? Okay, what I was saying is I feel like a lot of these requirements are for like, hey, as an AI app user, here's the common interface I want, right? But the work is on the hardware vendors or the framework like maintainers to adhere to that standard. It's actually not, the work isn't on the platform vendors to go implement.
Go ahead, Kevin.
I think I agree with Rita. This kind of goes into the next one about disaggregated serving. And like what I've seen is that there's usually like the advanced ingress that seems to be handled as part of something like Dymino or LLMD or even VLLM. So I'm wondering, like it feels like we have two kind of very similar issues that are more, and I'm also wondering like, do we expect people to deploy this advanced ingress completely separately from like an inferencing platform? Or is this kind of a component that people would need for model serving? But
The
yeah, there's a,
reason that
sorry, go on.
oh,
I think
Janet.
I was
either way would work, right? As long as like this is being leveraged, right? Whether it's part of the platform or not, a platform component or not, as long as it can be installed and routes the request, that should be sufficient.
Yeah, the reason that it's advanced is that even though not every user need it, but it covers more users. When the advanced users need it, they can use it. And the users don't need it can still use it for simpler serving solutions. That's why I put it.
Yeah, it's more that we care about the unified interface that this serves, and like if it's Kserve in the background or LLMD or whatever, as long as they can interface with this with the inference extensions, then we're fine, right? Which makes a lot of sense to me. It's similar to how we want DRA to become like a standard interface.
Yeah. So any major concerns on this one?
For what it's worth, I think like the ones that y'all just mentioned, like LMD, Dynamo, I think Kserve, I believe they all implement this now, right?
Yeah.
So it's actually safe for what it's worth. Like, and for the ones that don't support it, I think this is the extra nudge that we need in the ecosystem to say, hey, your users need this, so go implement it.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to get at is like for the conformance, like it isn't as clear to me if we are, I mean, like we're saying you must, this is kind of like the queue or the gang scheduling one where we're saying you should really support advanced ingress, but we don't necessarily have an implementation that you need to support, which is fine. Or I guess we're saying gateway API inference extension, but I think this is fine. It's just, it does sort of like, I'm not too sure how many people would deploy this separately. It does feel like, maybe I'm not, this isn't my area of expertise. So maybe people are deploying these separately and tuning them.
So should we start with writing the Kubernetes AI conformance proposals, and then everyone can just comment in there because the car will have more details than just these few texts.
Yeah, sounds good.
I'm also, yeah, sorry to interrupt. I'm also curious if we should invite, folks from Storage Working Group here to talk about their roadmap for inference extension, right? Because I don't know, like, in which version of the API they have right now and what their plans and how much adoption they have. I know, LMD and Kserve and other, inference platforms maintain, and inherit this solution for Gateway API. But it would be nice to understand, like the broader spectrum of adoption for this project.
I think it's also adopted by Dynamo and AI Bricks.
We can also invite them to comment on the PR once we open them. That's probably easier for folks to discuss async.
100%. And just to respond, in my opinion, I think what we're saying though is not that you have to use this, inference routing. You don't have to use it, but it's more in the event you need it, right? In the event you need intelligent inference routing, use a framework that supports this abstraction or this common interface, right?
Yeah, it's not going to be applicable for all use cases. Like only if like this shows up or performing well for their specific use case, they'll support this. All right, sounds good. Let's move on. we also have 10 minutes. So should we discuss this one, or is there any other topics? Let me check that.
Yeah, let's discuss this one because I guess we're going to follow up in the car PR, but we can gather everyone's early input first.
Okay, so this one is about disaggregated inference support. Wait, is it me? Oh, I hear my echo.
No, you're good.
Okay. Yeah, to be conformant, the vendor should demonstrate that the platform can successfully install disaggregated serving solution.
I think this is like the previous one, right? It's in the event you need disaggregated serving. The platform should support, install, and run a framework that supports disaggregated serving.
Yeah, it's very similar to the last one.
Yeah.
Just that here we, as Kevin also I think wrote, we don't have a standard API for it, right? Yet, at least.
Go ahead, Andre.
Yeah, I think I just want to quickly say on this topic. I think I definitely agree on thinking about API here, because I think we have also several conversation also with the folks from NVIDIA around Growth project when they specifically address the challenges of running disaggregated inference with leader worker sets and why it is hard to actually do this right with the leader worker set API today. I think there are some options to, utilize job set for this, but we can definitely talk about it because job set has not been originally designed for serving. But it's possible to orchestrate such inference pipeline there. But I would love for, this community to propose some API or maybe have some enhancement on the existing APIs so we can, provide a good API for PD disaggregation. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, but that's about multi-node inference, right? This one is more about disaggregated serving, which can be single node.
I don't think we
Maybe
have,
we need a separate
yeah.
issue for like multi-node inference requirement.
I think what I learned from folks running those models that they kind of need to separate leader and worker for both prefill and decode, which means like you should have uh, multiple replicas across this inference pipeline, and then you need to group them together. As far as I understand correctly, this is not supported within single leader worker set today. Not sure if this is something you mentioned here, Jeanette, or I kind of misunderstood the topic.
So sounds like it might be early for this one to get in.
I mean, I guess maybe what I'm a little unclear on whether or not, because like we say a disaggregated serving, what I understand is like LLMD and Dynamo and BLLM have a lot of different options for deploying these things. And it's not really like, here is the path you need to do. And like we're saying like, oh, you can use LLMD or Dynamo, but then when I look at their docs, there's always these options of how you deploy this. And then if you deploy it this way, you get, at least I was thinking multi-node when I jumped into this, but I was thinking multi-node disaggregated serving. And I guess it gets a little unclear to me, like what we mean by this. Like, do we want to say like you should use something like VLM or LMD or Dynamo or SG-Lang or whatever, and like we let those communities kind of dictate the best practices? Because I don't feel like we're able to actually say much here right now.
So I want to clarify that this is about the platform capability. So platforms should support deploying those, whatever best practice the developer of those solutions. Because the platform still needs to demonstrate that they can run this solution with specific maybe hardware capabilities or network in Puja.
Yeah, I mean, this is a bit similar to what we had with the gang scheduling, where like different solutions, but maybe none of them in tree was there. But we do know that end users have this requirement for this capability oftentimes, and I think that's why we wanted to have this in to say, okay, if you um, have an NI conformant platform and end users kind of rely on capabilities for that, then we can kind of guarantee that this capability is there. While still acknowledging that sadly it's not a standardized capability and everyone will do it extremely different right now. Also not really seeing for disaggregated inference at least a good way on standardizing, unlike other things where like we do have a way towards standards. I think here we're super far away from a standard.
Yeah, I think we need some standard before anything like this to move to must. But then for should, we want to signal both the community and maybe outside of Kubernetes community that you can run inference and disaggregated inference on Kubernetes. That's the goal of this proposal. But then we don't have to use the exact phrase. We can change it based on everyone's feedback. Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of API, I think I hope this works itself out as people think about the workload aware scheduling, because the reality is that like we are getting some requests in that group around supporting disaggregated serving, but without not having an API, it's going to be really difficult to actually for probably them to support it anyway. So I'm hoping that this works itself out eventually, because like I've already gotten some requests for smarter preemption strategies for this stuff, and then it's like if there's no API, I don't really know like what you do here, because like what I see from LMD, Grow is a little better, but LMD has it deployed as like a Helm chart, and I don't like there's no way you could react to downscaling in that kind of scenario. So I imagine this thing will eventually work itself out. I guess, yeah, I'm wondering if we shift like we did with gang scheduling, where it's more like you should support one of these platforms for inferencing, is more like what we recommend, because I think to Rita's point, also my point, I don't see any way to test this right now, especially because I imagine in a year none of this stuff is going to be the same.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion.
Yeah. All right. We only have a minute left, so let's keep thinking about these three issues and provide your feedback on GitHub issue, and we can revisit them next time.
Yeah, I
Sounds
think
good.
we're going to open the car PRs and then continue the discussion there, because that way people can make suggestions to the exact text.
For all three, or just
Yeah.
like the first two?
I think for all three.
Okay. That's fine. Yeah. The more detailed, the better. All right. Sounds good. That's it for today then. Thank you everyone for attending and have a good day.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye.